There's a moment in every major fight buildup where the promotion stops feeling like marketing and starts feeling real. Not scripted tension. Not rehearsed lines. Real stakes. And somewhere in the middle of this press conference, that shift happened. What started as typical fight week energy, questions back and forth, a few sharp quotes, quickly turned into something heavier. Because when Jake Paul said, "I can kill him," it cut through the usual noise of boxing promotion and landed differently. Not because boxing hasn't heard extreme language before, it has. Fighters have always spoken in absolutes. "I'm going to destroy him. I'm going to take his head off." It's part of the culture. But this felt more direct, less metaphor. And Tyson Fury's response, calling it classless, represents a divide that's been building in boxing for years. Old school versus new school. Presentation versus promotion. Tradition versus attention. Jake Paul, when asked to explain, didn't walk it back. He leaned into it. "It's my job. We fight. We're licensed to kill." Now, taken literally, that's obviously not true. Boxing is a regulated sport with rules, referees, and medical oversight. But what he's expressing isn't about legality. It's about mindset. And this is where things get complicated. Because fighters do operate in a space that most people don't fully understand. When you step into a ring knowing someone is trying to hurt you, and you're trying to do the same, there's a psychological switch that flips. Hesitation can get you knocked out. Fear can get you injured. So many fighters adopt an extreme mentality. Not because they actually want to harm someone permanently, but because they need to remove doubt. That's what Jake is trying to articulate, just in the most aggressive way possible. Still, Fury's criticism isn't baseless either. There's an unspoken code in boxing. You can be ruthless in competition, but you respect the danger. You don't glorify the worst possible outcome. Because everyone in that world understands how real the risks are. Fighters have died in the ring. Careers have ended in seconds. So when someone frames it as license to kill, it crosses from intensity into something that makes even hardened veterans uncomfortable. That tension between selling the fight and respecting the sport is exactly what this matchup represents. And it goes beyond just one quote. Because underneath all of this is a much bigger narrative. Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua isn't just a fight. It's a collision of identities. On one side you have Joshua, Olympic gold medalist, former heavyweight champion, a product of traditional boxing systems. Built through amateur pedigree, refined through elite competition, tested at the highest level. On the other side, Jake Paul, a complete disruptor. No amateur background in the traditional sense. Built through social media, business instincts, and calculated risk-taking. A fighter who created his own lane rather than following the sport's established path. So when Jake says, "No one has done more for boxing in the last decade than I have," it sounds outrageous to purists. But it's not entirely disconnected from reality. He has brought new audiences, new platforms, massive viewership numbers. Netflix involvement alone signals a shift in how fights are consumed. From a business perspective, he's undeniably influential. From a competitive standpoint, though, that's where skepticism remains. Because Anthony Joshua represents a level Jake hasn't faced. Power, experience, composure under pressure. That's why this fight feels dangerous. Not just physically but reputationally. For Jake, it's the ultimate test. If he wins, everything changes. The criticism, the doubt, the YouTuber label. It all takes a massive hit. For Joshua, the risk is different. He's expected to win. Not just win, dominate. Anything less creates questions. That's the pressure he alludes to when he talks about carrying boxing. Because in a strange way, he is. There's a segment of the boxing world that wants him to end this experiment. To draw a clear line between influencer boxing and elite competition. But there's another reality too. If Jake is competitive, or worse if he wins, that line disappears. And boxing changes whether it wants to or not. That's why the stakes feel bigger than usual. Even the smaller moments in the press conference hint at it. The crowd reactions, the awkward humor, the historical references that don't quite land. It all feels slightly off balance, because this isn't a traditional fight build-up. It's part sport, part spectacle, part cultural shift. Joshua, for his part, stays relatively composed. He acknowledges the opportunity. Netflix global audience visibility. He frames it professionally. Focus on the craft. Focus on the performance. But even he admits the mental difference. This feels like I'm being called to save boxing. That's not something you usually hear from a fighter. It reveals the external pressure. The expectations placed on him. Not just to win, but to restore order. And Jake. He leans the other way entirely. I'm going to do the impossible. That's been his brand from the beginning. Prove people wrong. Take bigger risks. Create moments that feel unlikely. And to his credit, he's done that repeatedly. Just not at this level. Not yet. Which brings everything back to the core question. Not the trash talk. Not the narratives. Not even the business side. Just the fight itself. What happens when someone built through disruption meets someone built through tradition? Because inside the ring, none of the outside context matters. No followers. No headlines. No promotional angles. Just skill, timing, power, and composure. Joshua's advantages are clear. Jake's belief is undeniable. And somewhere between those two things is the truth. That's why this fight works. That's why people are watching. Because for all the noise, there's still uncertainty. And in boxing, uncertainty is everything. When the bell rings, all the talking, extreme or measured, fades away. And what's left is the one